Johnny, oh, it's very loud, isn't it?
No, that's fine. Just
Very loud, Johnny. This is our sound check. People in the Walters show do not want to hear us. I think we could be a lot lower, don't you? Oh, there you are.
What?
Still too loud, I think.
okay, we can get going.
Have you?
Hello. Can you hear me? I don't think it's...
No, I think I'm way too loud.
You're way louder than I am, aren't you?
But you're a self-spoken.
Oh, come on.
You don't have two boys to deal with.
But they
No.
can't hear Ruth at all.
Oh, mate. Can you hear me? I
Yeah.
don't think... Okay.
All right, are we ready?
We are ready. Kia ora everyone. Welcome to Auckland Gallery. Welcome to the 9th Walters Prize, named in honour of great Walters artist Gordon Walters, who we are fortunate enough to be hosting a retrospective of his work upstairs on level 1. This is the last weekend for that show. I'm sure you can go and see it, as well as most certainly before that, the 2018 Walters Prize. This year's winner is behind me, Ruth Buchanan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Natasha Conland, Curator of Contemporary Art, has come in to be in conversation with it. Would you please welcome the 2018 Walters Prize winner, Ruth Buchanan.
Yep, congratulations, Ruth. And welcome everybody. Kia ora tātou. Welcome to the Auckland Art Gallery, and literally the day after the award dinner we have had these talks now with the recipient of the prize award, I think almost since the beginning, and it's something in a crash course and speaking to the public as a prize winner, of course, having not prepared for the talk. It's an improvisational space, and I know you'll be generous. This is not something that Ruth was preparing for yesterday afternoon, but here we are, and what a change. For those of you who didn't catch the interview this morning on Kim Hill, Adriano Pedrosa, this year's Walters Prize judge, artistic director of MASP, and Ruth spoke this morning very nicely together in the uneasy environment, of course, which is the looming question of, well, why did you choose this work over three other excellent works in the prize? And of course, Adriano mentions the subjectivity involved in the role of judging, which is without doubt part and parcel of the process. But I thought, because we're here right now, and actually we haven't spoken to an audience at all about bad visual systems, why don't we just start from the beginning? Ruth has won the award, for those of you who may not know, for her exhibition Bad Visual Systems from 2016, which was first staged at the Adam Art Gallery. Something of a mammoth solo show that turned into a group show, or should I say an invitation to do a solo show that Ruth reworked as a group show. It was also a year in which she had two other exhibitions in New Zealand, and it was a very busy, very heady time. And Ruth, I wondered if you could just begin by spelling out that really important dialogue for this show, for the beginning of what began with the invitation from Director Christina Barton to you to do a show at the Adam, and how you, in a way, sidestepped that role of the monograph, the single artist project, at that time, which is, of course, also an honour and an exciting prospect.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think when Tina invited me to make a show at the Adam, I was, I guess, I wanted to approach the context in quite a particular way. The Adam is located inside Victoria University in Wellington, so it has academic context, and I suppose for me that meant engaging with what art history looks like. And I mean, a monographic solo show is maybe a norm within art history making, and group shows are a norm within art history making, but sort of developing a hybrid or other form is maybe less of a norm. So that for me was an important gesture to make, that we could define another way of making art history, basically. And I guess one of the other things that was compelling to me about inviting Mariana Vex and Judith Hopf and producing this sort of three-artist situation was to riff on the architecture of the Adam, which is a three-storied building sort of stacked into the bank of Wellington, so into the geography of Wellington. And I liked the idea of taking the architecture as a diagram as well. So I guess thinking Mariana is in her 80s, Judith is in her 50s, I'm in my 30s. So it's some kind of geography space as well. So I liked the idea that the three of us could occupy this three-leveled architecture as a compressed diagram of art history somehow, or a feminist art history, I guess.
They're all women. Did that automatically make it responsible for feminism, or was that something you wanted to bring to the forefront?
I think definitely for me, I would always identify as speaking from a feminist perspective or position. That's my background, I guess that's the place from where I speak. Certainly Mariana's practice connects very much to a second wave feminist project, and I think Judith would also define herself as feminist, and I guess it wasn't for me the first thing about the project. It wasn't, this is a project, this is a feminist show, but certainly I wanted to take things that feminism have given us as a position or approach to develop a show around. But I probably wouldn't have asked two other guys. That's probably true.
I'm going to jump straight ahead to the installation upstairs, because what's really astounding about the translation of that show, Bad Visual Systems, I think, for Ruth, into 1/4 of the Chartwell galleries, is it manages to maintain something of that enormity of that project, which bleeds in a way even outside the three of you, doesn't it? Outside the Adam. It makes the walls and the spaces of the city acknowledged, particularly because Mariana Vex's extensive archive of the public in their language. When you have drawn it into the space upstairs, and I'm thinking now of the lens of feminism, it's not something that we talked about, but the first thing you did was position this incredible violet curtain, and of course some of us will know that purple has become a signatory colour for feminism, but it's for you it's also colour. How does colour work for you, Ruth, in that regard? It's not just a sign, is it?
Yeah, I mean, colour's tricky. It plays a significant role in my work, and I think that I've chosen to assign particular colours particular qualities, and certain colours appear again and again asked to perform a particular task. And with the purple curtain, it's, for me, I guess I feel like, somehow purple has become associated with feminism perhaps, and I liked the idea of starting the space by casting it purple. So sort of saying that everything that happens in here is cast under the light of a feminist shadow somehow. And I suppose colour is asked to do that in my work, is asked to kind of speak of particular histories or spaces. Yeah.
One of the things that you do as well in the work, and you alluded to it last night in the very beautiful speech you gave in acceptance of the prize, was the way in which text in the work, or language, constantly meets the body in that work. So here we are up on the stage talking about feminism and a sort of received knowledge, but at the same time, all the way through that work, you're upstairs, all the way through the installation, you're giving people textural clues, aren't you? So in my thinking about the colour, it's very sensuous right from the beginning. And you intend that, don't you? To draw the body in a tactile way.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think for me, the interest with language is about playing on the border between what production of meaning is. So I guess language is a tool for communication, but I've been interested in trying to understand where those boundaries are, and thinking about language. Language is something that's it's embodied, it's sexualized, it's erotic, it's meaning that, I guess, that meaning can be other than what we know, and it can be very attached to the body. Yeah. I feel really dazed.
You're tired. But here, let's talk about something very straightforward, because we wanted to begin with the beginning, and now we've begun with the bad visual systems. But of course, with anything like this, and I think it's exemplified in the text that you present in the work, you're thinking for this project, and this is some of the richness and some of the ways in which as an audience you can start to feel why this is a mature work that it is, because it's collected your thinking, Ruth, really over some years now. And when you were speaking to the award last night, you began with Virginia Woolf, and you've used Virginia Woolf as a figure in your work before. Can you tell the audience a little bit about why she has been an important person to you in your practice?
During my master's studies, which was, during my master's I read A Room of One's Own for the first time, and I'd never read it before. And at the time I was working on a project that was connected to the history or the practice of Flora Scales, a New Zealand painter, modernist painter, sort of unknown or not well known in New Zealand, or not known at all in an international context. And one of the things for me that was really tricky about that project was to try and define a space from which I could speak. So as soon as you get into the quite complex terrain of dealing with history, you start to get involved with things like, am I speaking for her? Am I speaking on behalf of Flora? Who am I to speak about her work? Why am I doing this? And I suppose in order for me to feel okay to make a project that investigated the life and work of another artist, but not make it in a classical historical way, I was really searching for a way to define my own voice, and I felt the address of Virginia Woolf, where she asks what, really she very clearly says, what are the conditions required to produce a work of art? For me, that was sort of like the carte blanche, I guess, to say, what are those conditions? I don't have to operate within the conditions that exist, I can define those again and again and again and again. And so for me, she's been a significant figure or a touchstone because of that that call to define our own voice on our own terms.
And you think, or in a sense, or is this microphone ringing?
It's a little bit ringing.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit ringing in our ears. It's quite distracting. Whomever is dealing with the tech, Darren, it's just ringing in our ears, making it a little bit difficult to, we will carry on, it's all right. What I wanted to get to in asking you that question is really that your own questioning, led by her questioning, right, creates a self-reflexivity, which is really important to your practice. And you, in a way, describe that in your work. It's made visual, in other words. Sometimes it's diagrammed. You're showing people literally the routes you're travelling on, where my ideas have been. Sometimes you show yourself in a space of research, supposedly before the work, but as the work, right? And and I'm thinking really more of the early work, the work around the time of your graduate projects on these women. Sometimes you show yourself in a phase of just questioning and not yet being there. And certainly the curtain has become a kind of a motif that's ended up structural as well, but it's sort of like an enclosure for ideas, and or I don't even know. It's become different things, actually, hasn't it? Now there are chains, and in this installation, there's the curtains, the multiple curtains, and even the wall are almost emblematic of the layers you're wanting to diagram. I'll just use that word again. You're wanting to really show people there are many steps, and this is something that Adriano referred to this morning and last night about this kind of cacophony of ideas. What I think it's, if I'm allowed to say, is a really beautiful aspect of your work is that you let people into that space of making, in which sometimes the questions or the spaces you go with the material really are still perhaps unresolved. They still are questions rather than results. Do you think that's a fair call?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, certainly the work is a conversation, I think, a conversation within itself, back to myself with sort of peers and a public. So I do feel that it is a practice that's sort of dynamic, and maybe there's moments of knots or points of compression where things come together, but those are the moments where then the practice moves on again. So I think there is, for me, something about that ambivalence of making a statement in order to then think about the exact opposite or something. So I want to feel like the practice is open in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And why it's important to say that, perhaps, is because we've already started talking about a big word like feminism and the starting point for your work. But in actual fact, it's irresolved in the work. It's not placed anywhere.
Yeah.
You're using tropes. And in fact, increasingly, you're developing your own language around it. So, for example, the wavy line, which is a kind of an early motif in your work, now is a fabric. And it's a piece of graffiti on the North Terrace. And it's a piece of graphic design in the catalogue. Can you tell the audience here who may not know what the background to that wavy line is, and when you first employed it and how useful it's become for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wavy line is maybe an interesting case study somehow within the language of my practice. The wavy line started as a line, so a text in a script that was a voiceover for a video, and the line was, a wavy line is drawn across the middle of the original plans, and it was a video I was making about making work. And sort of trying, I guess, in the video, grappling with trying to understand what my core questions were, what the structures and hierarchies, the normative structures and hierarchies that I was dealing with, and how I might other them. And I suppose for me, the image of drawing a wavy line across a plan seemed like a really clear way to disrupt something. And so from there, the text and the script that became an audio piece became a drawing that I do, became a fabric that I designed. So it's sort of a recurrent image of disruption for me. And obviously the graffiti is sort of an emblematic moment of disruption. So very casually able to across the stone wall outside. It was really exciting to do that.
Right from the beginning, when you were talking about placing bad visual systems at the gallery, you wanted to inhabit some of these exterior spaces. Can you talk a little bit to people here about what your intentions were in terms of the host institution?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the nomination for bad visual systems, there was an expectation of something like site specificity, because the original bad visual systems had been developed so specifically in conversation with the architecture of the Adam Art Gallery. And I liked the idea of rethinking what site specificity could mean. So I guess I was interested, rather than necessarily making a work that fitted perfectly within the architecture of the Auckland Art Gallery, taking site specificity to mean claiming that space. So expanding the parameters of what my exhibition zone could be, expanding the parameters of how exhibitions operate. Do they need to be located in one fixed point? Can they be roving? Can they be durational? Can they be temporal? Can they be inside and outside? Can they hijack other works that are already on show in the gallery? So I really tried to think of site specificity to its edge. And so the sort of the spray outside, or the co-option of the Rachel White-Reed piece, was to break some of those boundaries of exhibition making for me.
And one of the most important ways that you've done that in this show has been the translation of the host role that was at the Adam, showing you a work, an additional artwork. In this way, the host role is doing the same, but there's, in a way, an increased performative aspect to what they do. Can you tell us how you scripted that role?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the most challenging parts of reconfiguring the show from the Adam to here. What the Auckland Art Gallery can do as a big institution is, on the one hand, amazing, and what the Adam Art Gallery could do as a smaller institution, which means it's lighter on its feet, was also amazing. So trying to find a way to bring those different institutional scales together was definitely one of my challenges. The Adam could do that. They were like, yep, great, you can, the assistant can be part of the work, we're really happy about that. And here it was certainly much more like, and the scale of a bigger institution means that there's...
It's because we have to pay everyone, right?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, yeah, it's a mechanism at a different scale, and I did feel very committed to keeping that component of the work there, and I guess the scripting of that part of the work really, I think, felt to me like it wasn't finished really until the day before the show opened. You know, we were really working on that till right to the end to try and, I guess, produce something like a ambivalent character in the space. So someone who's hosting but not, they're relaxing but they're working, they're offering tours, but the tours are notably short. So trying to sort of, figure out how to create a zone of friction, oddness in that character of the assistant.
Let's talk about that a bit, actually, because for those of you who might not know how that role was formed, so as I've said, there was a hosted aspect to the show already, and as Ruth said, the challenge of, because of the number of hours that the gallery here is open, of creating a full-time hosted position was quite tough. And so in actual fact, as is often the case with building a show, we had to really decide, like, what is the thing that we really want to achieve? And we more or less decided this was something we really want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
So there was another ambitious element. We kind of looked at them, and this is something we really wanted to achieve. And so Ruth had a concept, but of course, the best part about the process was it actually taking the gallery hosts all around the building and thinking about what they do. So you had an idea from Bad Visual Systems about what you wanted them to do, but you also wanted to observe how they were already functioning here. So you spent a day really looking and watching. And then so Ruth went into almost not just the script, but really talking through and workshopping with the gallery assistants. So with them in conversation. So if someone came in like this, normally what would you do? Okay, well, I don't want you to do that. Normally, so in this case, I want you to just keep lying down and relaxing. And even a very subtle gesture of taking away someone's role of, hello, how are you, or ignoring them, or on the phone, to just spreading out their body on the chaise lounge was actually quite dramatic. Small, subtle gesture to, if you can put your minds in that role of that position, to be lying prostrate while where a stranger comes in. It's a reasonably significant shift. And we had to almost cast a subset of the hosts to do it, and those people have become incredible agents for you now, and
totally.
they take it really seriously. And in fact, particularly around this project, who would be the people to actually host it through the judging period is, of course, talked about. And it's interesting. Are you happy with that side of things now? It's working well from my point of view, and I think I haven't been on it, though, because for me, I wouldn't get the objectivity. But how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's... with any live component, there's always an element of, what do I want to say, instability to it, and that I think is a really crucial tone to bring into the installation, because the installation in lots of ways is very tight and kind of perfect in terms of some of the finishes of the objects and the way the space is cut so precisely, that having this unstable human element for me is really an important tone that sort of flips the show again. And it's hard for me to know how it works for a viewer. I had really interesting conversations with the assistants and have had quite a lot of feedback from visitors, which has been really nice. Several people coming on different days, so having a tour with a different assistant each day, which meant the tour had a slightly different tonality, and I am really happy that there's that quality to the work. That was one of the things I discussed with the assistants, that there were parameters that we sort of defined together, but at the same time, I needed to also be able to say, I've chosen to work with the gallery assistants. I'm not casting an actor. So there is an element of subjectivity, or the subject working within a protocol, and whether they do that or break it, that's one of the risks, and I think that's important.
And just so people know, you also scripted the text that they read.
Yeah, I've scripted the text, but some of them read it very quickly, some of them know it off by heart, some of them read it from a paper, so there's kind of a spectrum of how they embody or inhabit their character of the assistant, which, for me is important, and why I wanted to have a live element, a performative element in the installation.
Yeah, I mean, it might be interesting for you to know, I've not often had so many voluntary pieces of feedback from strangers or the public, let's just say, about a work, and there's been a lot about this process. People really finding the relationship, in particular between the Women's Art Archive show and the experience of being up there, very rewarding, and they've been very grateful for your drawing them through the gallery. So I hope if you haven't done one of the tours, 11:30 and 2 o'clock.
11, I think.
Is it 11? Okay, yeah, don't rely on me. Consult a gallery host. Ruth, we might, I think, end now.
Great.
Well, rather than exhausting the subject. Is there anything else you would like to say about the work, or there's so much more that we've already said? The catalogue has a great interview with Ruth. Ruth's comments in there very thoughtful about the work and about the process in particular. So I haven't spoken so much about those issues of translation from the Adam Art Gallery to Auckland, and also how she sees the text and in particular the title, which is also a quote, "Bad Visual Systems," playing out in the work. So please get a hold of a copy of the catalogue if you would like. I want to leave you with the last word if you've got something to say.
I don't have a last word. The show. There's lots of words up there. I mean, I would say thank you, and it's really awesome honour to be named as the winner. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Congratulations again.